Another day. Work progresses slower than I'd like it to, but it is progressing. And today's task is to get back down into the cockpit hatch and try and sort out the remaining issues with the fuel tank. I've got a drain cock and hose on the last fitting on the tank. I still haven't sorted out why the tank isn't sitting flat, which I want to do before I bolt it in. So first things first, I want to sort out the angle of the tank. Then I want to bolt it in, and then I'll put in the drain cock. Ooh, got swallows all over. Those little guys poop all over the boat too. They eat bugs, which is good, but they also poop all over the boat. Without further ado, let's get busy. So before I climb down into the bottomless pit, I thought I would revisit the mast gate project to see how it turned out, and it turned out very well. It's a little bit stiff. I think it's probably got some epoxy in the hinges, or maybe it's just tape that got up in there, but I think that's a workable solution as long as the epoxy holds and doesn't let go sometime in the future. I think we can call that a success. I'm just going to peel off the masking tape that I put on there. And just like that, we have a working mast gate. Now, I mentioned before that I'm going to have to trim this metal off, so I think I'm going to do that now. Just simply finish this little project off, and then I'm going to test the lugs, see how they work. And there it is. Well, that didn't last as long as I had hoped. Looks like there's some tape got behind where the glue was supposed to be, and the glue wasn't adhered all the way down the length of the gate, so it was only sticking. I don't know if you can see that. It's only sticking just a little bit, and as soon as I started to apply a little pressure to it, off it came. So back to the drawing board. So I'm not sure what happened with the mast gate bonding project. I reread the material online, and apparently two-part epoxy is great for bonding aluminum to aluminum. They do give a caveat that you have to prepare the surfaces well beforehand. I did that. I ground both sides, like on the mast and on the mast gate, with my tool. And then on top of that, wash it down with acetone to prevent any grease or oxidization. Apparently, aluminum will oxidize fairly rapidly. And I've done that. And so I re-glued it. This time I used copious amounts of epoxy. And it looks like it's going to stick. I just hope I haven't glued the hinge itself. But we'll see. We'll wait a day or two, let that kick off, cure, and we'll continue with other projects. So now I'm going to get down in the engine compartment, fuel tank hold, as I mentioned before, and I'm going to get busy with that. So this block here is the culprit. It's basically acting like a fulcrum. When I put it in, I had to cut it in half because the tank wouldn't go up underneath the bulwark here with it in place. The tank at the bottom is actually very narrow. It's only about an inch and a quarter, but up at the top it's much wider. It's about 8 inches, and so to get it up in there, I had to remove that block. And now that the tank is in there, I epoxied the block back in, but unbeknownst to me, it was actually too big,
And so I had to cut a notch out of the block in order for it to sit properly on the ledge. So now it's not leaning forward anymore. The notch I cut has done its job. The gap has disappeared. It's sitting on all the rubber pads just like I expected and wanted it to. I've got a bolt in this block, but the rest of the blocks I haven't been able to bolt in because the blocks were pre-drilled. I had chosen a diameter of drill bit that was actually too big for the bolts, and so when I put the bolts in, I could push them in with my finger, and of course they would just come right back out again. So I have filled them with epoxy, and we'll have to let that cure, and then I'll be able to re-drill and get the bolts in. Now the next thing on my project list is to get the fuel filters back in place. The old fuel filter used to live right here. One of the previous owners had made a bracket so that it would sit up a little bit higher, but it was kind of in the way. It just was not a really good suitable solution at all. So I need to do something with this to be able to access the bottom of the filter and have it out of the way of everything else. Tank project I had to tackle was the fuel fill. When I put the fuel fill back in after making the tank sit square on its butt, the fuel fill wasn't sitting level on the deck again. And so I had to fight with that for a little bit. And what I discovered was, at some point I had had a brain fart and I was using sanitation hose instead of fuel filler hose. Brilliant.
Well, it was quite the day. We started off with the mast gate, discovered that the epoxy didn't take the way we wanted it to, so we redid that. And then we started it in the fuel tank hold, and I figured out that the mounting block was interfering with the way the tank was sitting, so I adjusted the mounting block, and then I had to re-bed the fuel filler because I had to take that out to see what was going on with the fuel tank. And then I put the last fitting on the starboard tank, the drain barb valve on there. So that's everything. All the fittings that need to be fitted to the tanks are now fitted. The only thing I did not complete was the mounting bolts into the blocks. I already said that the holes that I had pre-drilled for that were too big, so I filled them with epoxy, very, very thickened epoxy, and hopefully tomorrow or maybe the day after I'll be able to come back, drill some correct size holes, and then put the lag bolts into the mounting blocks, and that will complete the fuel tank project. And it's just a matter of putting the fuel filters and the exhaust back together, and you can call that a win. And actually with that, although there's still lots of work to do on the boat, I could go sailing. So stay tuned for that. I've had this boat since 2015, and I've been out twice. Once to bring it here, and once July 1st, a couple of years ago, we took it out for a spin to see the fireworks. I doubt that's going to happen this year with all the corona panic going on, but we'll see. Regardless of what happens with corona, I intend to go sailing. My self-imposed deadline was May 1st, so we've got like 4 days to get the engine up and running. We'll see. But in the meantime, it's a gorgeous day out. Hopefully this holds into tomorrow and the day after, but if not, oh well. We'll just carry on. In the meantime, fair winds, fallen seas. God bless.